Hello everyone, Casey here. Today I found a ghost town while I was zooming around on Google Earth, and I want to talk a little bit about the ghost town, how it started, how it ended, what it looks like today. So that's what we'll be doing. It's right here in Nevada, in the northeastern corner of Nevada, bordering Idaho and Utah. So right here, for perspective, here's the Great Salt Lake. Here's the Great Salt Lake Desert. Pretty much everything west of the Great Salt Lake for a few hundred miles is very, very dry, high elevation desert. In fact, the desert averages about 5,000, between 4,000 and 5,000 feet. Just right here, the Great Salt Lake Desert looks pretty interesting. It would be cool to take a drive through there just to see what it looks like. Anyways, so here's the ghost town. The ghost town is called Metropolis. And this was founded in the early 1900s, about 1910 to be exact. It was started by basically the Mormons who came to Salt Lake and settled Salt Lake and all the surrounding areas. They wanted to try to branch out, especially to all these, desert areas, to turn them into something better. So there was a guy named Harry L. Pierce, and this guy envisioned a thriving town here. He wanted to turn this nothingness into a pretty awesome town. That's why he named it Metropolis. He had a pretty good vision for it. He purchased 40,000 acres of land. He hired a Salt Lake City contractor to build a dam on Bishop Creek so they could have irrigation. And once the dam was complete, the Mormon Church encouraged members to start moving here. And they did. And actually the population grew pretty quickly. I'll get into how it grew and everything pretty soon. So obviously this town was predominantly Mormons, but the funny thing is there was never a church that was built here. Apparently they used the town amusement hall as a meeting house. And once this town was complete, it had graded streets, it had cement sidewalks, fire hydrants, street lights. They even had a tree-shaded park. There was a newspaper called the Metropolis Chronicle that began publication to boost the town and sales of property. There was an elaborate water system. For ditches and they had canals for irrigating so they could farm. And the company built an amusement hall, a post office, a school, a train depot. They had a really magnificent modern hotel. In fact, that's what we were looking at over here. Here's the ruins of the hotel. You can see that it was actually pretty decent. Obviously, right now it isn't, but it was, for being in the middle of nowhere, it had pretty good architecture. And in fact, some more information on this hotel. It was pretty state-of-the-art back then. It had an electric generator, central heating, hot and cold running water in every single room. And remember, this is 1910. This is over 100 years ago. So the population in just 1 year it grew to 700 people, which I know it still sounds tiny, but if you think about it, you got to remember, we are way out in the middle of nowhere, nothing around. It's pretty impressive that the population was able to grow this quickly. And from what it sounds like, it was a pretty nice little town. Anyways, the problem, and I believe this is definitely why it became a ghost town, is Pierce was able to get a dam built. However, he never actually obtained legal rights to the dam and to this a small river. So they weren't able to use the dam, they weren't able to irrigate, which the farmers were able to deal with. Surprisingly, at first, they began dry wheat farming. And there were a few pests that came. There were a whole bunch of coyotes, and the farmers, put an end to the coyotes after trapping them, killing them. But because the coyote population was so low, the jackrabbit population, just took off and it went crazy. And there were jackrabbits everywhere. They were eating all the wheat. So the farmers trapped them, killed them, and apparently they sold them over they sold the pelts over in San Francisco. So after that, they were able to do decently well dry farming wheat, but this was mainly because they had an unusually high amount of precipitation for this area in those years. After that was over and it went back to the normal precipitation levels, the dry farming failed. There still wasn't enough water even for dry farming, and that's when the town really went downhill quick. In fact, shortly after this, the Mormon crickets came and they just obliterated anything that was left of the farming. And in 1922, the railroad discontinued service. The Pacific Reclamation Company, that's the company that Pierce owned, they declared bankruptcy in 1920. By 1924, there were only 200 people left. The amusement hall and the hotel burned. The last store closed in 1925, and the only functioning building left was the post office. And I haven't been able to find any ruins of the post office. Really, there's only ruins of the hotel right here, and then the school right here. And even the school had pretty decent architecture. Really impressive. And over here is the cemetery. And the cemetery still looks pretty decent. It looks like they kept it up. Obviously, people still remember their loved ones that are buried here. So that's good that they've taken care of it. The post office, it finally closed down in 1942, so I'm surprised it stayed open for a whole, almost a whole 20 years later. So by 1950, this was declared a ghost town. So it makes you wonder what this city would be like today if Pierce was able to get water rights, and what the population would be, how big it would be if it would just grow to be like a 1,000, 2,000 population small town, or who knows, maybe it could have been the next Las Vegas. Probably not. There's just that little dam. There's just not enough water to support a huge city, but it would be interesting to see what would have happened if they would have had water rights and they could farm. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. That's the Metropolis Ghost Town. Have a good day.